Does Donald Trump have dictatorial tendencies? Signs and second-term review. Donald Trump. A name that has loomed over American and global politics for nearly a decade. From the rally mentions of Make America Great Again to the inauguration of his second, non-consecutive term on January 20, 2025. To some he is champion of the people, to others, a warning sign of what happens when executive power is stretched beyond its checks. This video will walk through the historical signs of authoritarian-leaning behavior, how they played out during Trump's first presidency, and how new developments in his second term, 2025, add to the picture. We'll let the facts, the institutions, and the warning signals speak for themselves. 1. What we mean by dictatorial tendencies in modern democracies. Outright dictatorship is rare. One-party rule, no elections, full suppression of opposition. But there is a spectrum of concern. When an elected leader tries to undermine institutions of accountability, places personal loyalty above institutional fairness, delegitimizes opposition and the press, and uses power to stay in power rather than serve the law. These are the signals we watch. 2. Historical context. Trump's first term, 2017 to 2021. From the start, Trump attacked established institutions. He called major media the enemy of the people, questioned the legitimacy of investigations into his administration. He emphasized personal loyalty. Officials who diverged from his line faced dismissal, for example, FBI Director James Comey. He challenged the fairness of elections. After losing in 2020, he refused to concede, and encouraged efforts to overturn results. These behaviors raise the question, was this a one-off populist burst or something deeper? 3. The second term, 2025- and new developments. Trump returned for a second non-consecutive term, beginning January 20, 2025. Here are several current term developments relevant to our question. Institutional erosion or bypassing checks. In the first 100 days of his second term, scholars observed a pattern of blatant disrespect of the rule of law, our system of checks and balances. Approval ratings and support. His approval rating early in the term hovered around 40%, lower than typical early term averages, suggesting deep polarization and weakened popular mandate. Appointments and consolidation. The pace and composition of appointments have raised questions about whether the executive branch is being shaped to follow the leader rather than serve the public. Use of federal force. Law enforcement. There are reports that the administration has expanded use of federal troops/National Guard in ways that critics say stretch beyond usual norms. 4. Key signs of dictatorial tendencies and how they apply. Here are the major warning signs, and how Trump stacks up. A. Delegitimizing institutions of democracy by painting the media, courts, elections as rigged or corrupt. A leader undermines public faith in the system. Example, Trump's rhetoric around the 2020 election loss, claiming widespread fraud. Current term, reports of pushing federal forces into local jurisdictions, contesting the limits of federal versus state power. If unchecked, this weakens the state-federal balance, which is part of institutional resilience. B. Personalisation of power and loyalty over competence. A system tilts authoritarian when the leader expects obedience rather than professional merit. Historical, Trump's frequent firings of officials seen as disloyal. Current term, rapid appointments with little diversity in early phase of term. The question, are these appointments advancing the public good, or consolidating a loyalty-based power structure? C. Controlling narrative and undermining truth. Authoritarian leaders often create alternate realities or insist on narratives contrary to facts. Historical, claims of stolen election. Current term, the broader concern is around media relationships and centralization of messaging, also whether deviations from norms go unchallenged. D. Weakening of opposition and preparing for extended power. A key red flag, efforts to extend power beyond usual limits or to change norms to stay in office. Current term development. Though the U.S. Constitution's 22nd Amendment restricts presidents to 2 elected terms, Trump has publicly mulled a third term. The fact that this is raised publicly signals intention or at least testing boundaries of norms. 5. So, does he have dictatorial tendencies? The answer is, yes, in the sense that many of the usual red flags are present or increasing. But, no, in the sense that the U.S. has not yet crossed into full dictatorship, elections still happen, courts still rule, Congress still functions. What's more dangerous, the normalization of behavior which weakens institutions over time. If the signals go unchecked, the system might gradually erode. 6. Why it matters today. Because the second term shows that what might have been anomalies in the first term are becoming patterns. Because the health of democracy depends not only on elections but on norms, independent institutions, and accountability. Because the question is not just, is Trump a dictator now? But is he changing the system so that even if he leaves, the system is altered in his image? Conclusion: Donald Trump's political journey is not just about one man, but about what happens when power begins to override accountability. From his early days as a businessman turned politician to his first presidency and now his second term, the warning signs of personalization of power, institutional undermining, and narrative control have multiplied. Democracy is durable, but only as long as we recognize the signs and act on them. Because the most insidious shift is when authoritarian-leaning behavior becomes routine, and when citizens start to accept it as just politics.